But everything that I try to build is how do I increase freedom and how do I increase individual autonomy and kind of rekindle the ruggedness of the American experience. I know that sounds paradoxical coming from a hunting application, but we offer a free version of the app as well, where if you are a 16-year-old or 20-year-old a lot of time, you can drop pins, and we also do public and private on there for you. So you can go on there, you can make sure you're not trespassing, and you can go out there and engage in the culture.
Welcome to the LandTrust Podcast, where land, technology, and the outdoors meet. Whether you're a landowner, an outdoor enthusiast, or someone curious about the future of recreation on private land, you're in the right place. Each episode, we share real stories from the LandTrust community, from unforgettable guest experiences to conversations with landowners about their land and why they choose to share it, plus interviews with leaders, shaping how we all experience the outdoors. And now, here's your host, Nic De Castro.
Welcome to the LandTrust Podcast, where land, technology, and the outdoors come together. This episode is part of our Outsides Insider series, where we sit down with the founders, operators, and insiders shaping the future of the outdoor industry. Today, I'm excited to welcome a truly unique guest, Bill Thompson, founder and CEO of Spartan Forge. Bill is a retired Chief Warrant Officer who spent years inside the U.S. Army's most advanced special missions and tech units, including advising on cyber network operations and DARPA programs. After his military career, Bill turned his intelligence background and passion for the outdoors into a tool built for hunters. Spartan Forge uses maps, LiDAR, machine learning, and old-school scouting principles to help both big and small game hunters level up their strategy. In our conversation today, we'll dive into how Bill made the leap from the battlefield targeting cycles to whitetail tracking, how he thinks about ethics and accessibility in hunting tech, and where he sees the outdoor market going next. Little housekeeping before we jump in. The views expressed here are of Bill's or myself, not necessarily our companies. We always kind of give that caveat before we hop in. Bill, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Nick. How are you?
Good, man. Good. So, we reconnected, I think earlier this week it was. I had so many meetings. It ran together, but years ago, you and I were connected by a mutual connection, Eric Clark, OKS Hunter. This was like 2021. I went back in our emails. You were just getting things, you were getting things rolling. And man, it's cool to see how far you guys have come and just, you guys have grown a lot. So anyways, I'd love to hear, we usually start these with kind of bona fides. So, I gave a quick overview, but nothing better from the horse's mouth.
For what it's worth, I was in the military for 22 years. Almost 22, 21 and a half. I was a Chief Warrant Officer. First, I was an NCO, non-commissioned officer. Then I was a Chief Warrant Officer, which are kind of like your technicians of military units. And my job, it really changed a lot. First, it was kind of like technical expert. Then I went into product development, first focusing on kind of like what we called quick reaction capabilities. And then went to kind of like program of records, which are more sustained types of military programs. And then I went back to special missions units and kind of did some of the same stuff, building quick turn type of really niche intelligence capabilities. And then I kind of branched out from there doing media forensics, AI stuff, and then back to more product development and fielding for the special operations units, and then kind of using that product overseas. Network dynamic network mapping, doing niche one-off product development for Special Operations Command. And then after all of that, I went back to the Army, and I was an advisor to the general officer who's responsible for all of the offensive cyber capabilities inside of the Army. And that product line and program development and that type of stuff. So there's a lot to say. I worked in the technology sector with a focus on signals intelligence. I did human intelligence and computer network operations, and kind of did that from the tactical level all the way up to like the highest, weekly meetings in the Pentagon, or at least monthly meetings in the Pentagon, determining kind of like what the way forward looked like for military intelligence capacity in the 21st century. So while I was in the military, COVID happened. We went to kind of like a 2-hour-a-day posture at that point, and I started really diving into Spartan Forge during my off time. I might have worked like 2 or 3 meetings a day during COVID, that lasted way longer than it should have, but it allowed me to kind of get Spartan Forge on its feet. And we started Spartan Forge. I mean, I guess like the first lines of code, really it started in 2013, but Spartan Forge as a name, the concept I started working with in like 2013, 2014. Spartan Forge as a name and writing code for a product that was going to fall under the Spartan Forge auspices started in 2017. I think that's when we incorporated. And it started with like a website. And my focus at that time was kind of start on the machine learning, artificial intelligence stuff, which really 2015, 2016, 2017, there weren't a ton of people talking about it besides in like very niche communities. We were using it in the military, like I said, and I saw the parallels between that and what hunters might need or what would be coming down the pipe. So started the Spartan Forge thing, exited the military, went straight into Spartan Forge full time, and have pretty much been there ever since.
That's cool, man. Definitely a unique background in this space. Normally, the story is you like to hunt and fish, maybe hopefully you came from a technology background and you decided to marry. That's, where I came from. But I want to get to, so it's like product development. I'll get to there, but it's interesting to hear product development from a military perspective, right? We think of product development in startups and, private companies. So be curious to see how those two things compare. On that point, how do you see building product, if product is analogous to when we say product, like, Spartan Forge or LandTrust, but you're building it inside of this massive organization? I mean, how different is it? Do you have all the resources and get to have fun and they let you run free and build stuff? Or is it just like, corporate overlords, although the corporation is the military? How is it? I don't know.
There were two different flavors that I dealt with. One was inside of the special operations community where it was very mission driven. So it was like, hey, we're trying to get a guy across, a ISIS checkpoint, and he's going to have $100,000 on him and a ton of collection gear or something like that. So this is the truck that he drives now. Go and make this truck able to get this stuff through like a border checkpoint. It's like lots of fabrication, remolding stuff in the vehicle to make it look like it looked like before, weathering gear, that type of stuff. So that was like very niche, something that you could never roll into like a program of record. Those were like one-off things. I kind of made my bones doing that. I went to a lot of courses in the military that went through like traditional electrical engineering, traditional fabrication, how to make concealment devices, how to do clandestine collection, all of that type of stuff. And then from there, I went to the Army so at that level, we're talking like really strictly at the tactical level. Like you've got a
real world physical thing.
What you're going to make is going to go in the hands of the guy who's going to use it. And you've maybe got, aggressive timeline. I might have had 2 weeks to build something.
Wow.
Or less. And then a more relaxed timeline, it might be like 2 months, 3 months or something like that. And so you might have, like in the military, we call them impact cards. So I might have had like $100,000 budget to like get it done and to build all that stuff. Then I had a team of guys that I supervised. Well, at first it was me and one other guy in this community. And then once we were successful, we started building out like these cells that maybe we had 7 guys or 10 guys at the most. So that's kind of the tactical, like, bottom line of it there. And a lot of the same problems hunters have, variable analysis, going undetected in an environment where everything's trying to detect you, target analysis, understanding the target, understanding your own weaknesses, understanding the weaknesses of the target, your own strengths of the target. So all of that stuff kind of went into that. And then from there, the Army has, at the time when I started doing this in like 2014 or so, they had 2 types of what you would call like your corporate big money lines. And they were huge, but there'd be like a quick reaction capability. So now we're talking about, instead of building something for one guy to be used on one mission, now it's more like we're going to build something that's going to be used by tactical SIGINT troops. And it's not a part of their traditional training, but you need to make it simple enough for them to use. So you might be building something now that's for, 3,000 to 5,000 people to use and get trained on. So there's more rigor in that, but it's still considered quick reaction, because when you get to the other side that I'll talk about in a little bit, you've got what's called the program of record side. That's where we build the F-22 Raptor. That's where we build all of the IT that supports the rest of the Army and the military. Like, now you're talking about, it might be 3 years before you have a minimally viable product. You might have, it could be quicker, but generally it's much slower. And then there's sustainment dollars and that type of thing. So as the need iterates, or as the target changes or whatever, you've got a large budget. So on the quick reaction side, you might be talking about a budget for one product line of like $10 million, $7 to $10 million. And then on the program of record side, it's not crazy to get into like $1 billion. So you're talking about like a ton of people working on a product line. So my job in both of those, on the quick reaction side, I was more involved with what was getting built and using it myself and making sure that it fit the training levels for the soldiers who it was going to get into. And then on the strategic side, it was like, is the target that we're building against valid? Is the resources and the techniques that we're using to execute this target in the offensive cyber realm valid? And so, there are products that I was supervising when I first got in there 10 years ago that are still going today. And there are generally a ton of quick reaction ones that have come and seen the light of day and they go away, or they spin into something that's more sustained. So it's all about, in the military, it's all about the color of money. And there's money that's meant for war support. There's money that's meant for quick reaction, enduring capabilities. And then there's quick reaction, enduring capabilities that change in the program of records. So yeah, I mean, it is really corporatized, but it's different in the way that, it's a bug and a feature for the military and the Department of Defense writ large, which is, a budget's not a good budget unless it's growing. And so you're always, the military, even if you're like, hey, we kind of have what we need, they'll be like, oh, you don't need more money, you're a failure. Like, so you're always looking for more stuff, and it's like training last minute, or we're going to get guys in these courses and stuff. So
kind of like venture, right? You're like, hey, just keep raising money, man.
If you're efficient, it's a death. Well, I should say not now. When I was in the military, if you're efficient and you're executing and you're spending wisely, if you identify some efficiencies or you realize that there's a target that you no longer need to prosecute anymore, so you save the government some money, you'll get in trouble. Like I've seen general officers get dressed down in the Department of Defense. Now, what I will say is, I'm not trying to big time here. I'm just trying to say, people go on my Instagram or whatever. I had a lot of close and continuing contact with like the Secretary of Defense now, Pete Hegseth. I still exchange texts with him every once in a while. I've always told him I've got no interest in being in the DOD, but I'll tell you whatever you need to know when it comes to like at this level, you've got a $100 billion budget on some line. And, I'll just give little bits of insight here and there on how I think the system's broken. And to his credit, he is trying to get leaner, and he is trying to award efficiency in a way that hasn't been done in the past, which I think is a net positive for the taxpayer. But it was, we're talking about 12, 13 years of my life in and out of that, going from strategic back to tactical, back to strategic, back to tactical. So the advantage that I had in Spartan Forge was I knew how to build scaled distributed technology, and I'd kind of learned the lessons early on, which avoided me at least making some of the technical pitfalls that I think a lot of companies run into whenever they're trying to launch something. Because like you said, a lot of times it's hunters with like a great idea and not somebody with a huge technical background. So they can end up taking on more technical debt early that they don't even realize. And then when it's time to scale, or time to support more customers, or time to change the product in a meaningful way, they've coded themselves into a corner where they can't do that. So I always built, like from day one, I always built this product to support 500,000 people. Like I was always choosing databases, choosing scaling architecture, which in of itself has positives and negatives, right? Like if I depend on Amazon for user authentication, and then Amazon goes down like it did the other day, I'm screwed for a day or two. So as we grow, I'm always trying to take things back from software as a service empires and build it myself. For instance, we relied heavily on Mapbox in the beginning, and then we started building our own tiling servers and hosting our own imagery and doing that type of thing. So when Mapbox goes down, we don't go down. So it's a push and pull, and it was something I was very fortunate to kind of be on the ground floor for, because I just had an interest in doing my own. When I was younger, I gotten into some technology and learned technology, and kind of I got into what you might call the hacking side of the house when I was a teenager, in my bedroom. Like, just, how do I access a database that doesn't otherwise
white hat or
I mean, white hat and black hat. So I mean, I did a lot of that stuff. And when the military was setting up, when I joined the military, there was no cyber MOS like there is now. So
interesting.
There were these tests that went around.
They were like red teaming and stuff, right?
Yeah. So tests that went around that I took that I did pretty well on. I was pretty schooled early on stuff about like router vulnerabilities, 0 days, buffer overflows, that type of stuff. So I had a wealth and a breadth and depth of knowledge when the Army stood this up, and I got to impact a lot of that. And then, like everything, it grew way bigger. Like, there were like 7 of us in the beginning in the Army that knew command line execution or command line interface and that type of thing. And by the time I left the military, there were 10,000 soldiers who were doing it. So it was a cool, place to be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like I said, very unique background in this world. One thing we kind of skipped over. Why don't you explain to the people who don't know, how do you explain Spartan Forge to people?
I mean, at a very high resolution, I would just call Spartan Forge like digital variable analysis. It's like hunters have questions about the woods, about the animals, about the deer or elk or whatever it is that they're hunting. When I was hunting and at least successful, I had like 7 or 8 different places I would go to kind of, before I ever stepped foot in the woods and started burning, public or areas that I thought were interesting, I wanted to understand everything about the area. So like, what's the predominant wind? What's the buck to doe ratio in this area? That influences the likelihood of bucks doing daylight seeking and chasing. What's the doe population look like? What was fawn recruitment like? What does that even mean? How do I apply that in my everyday hunting stuff? It was the same thing I was doing for military commanders when I was running like a technical operations center, or what we called like a talk. Like, what are the tendencies of the enemy? What are the tendencies of the opposition force? What are our strengths as a military on the ground? What are our weaknesses? How do we turn weaknesses into strengths? How do we turn their strengths into weaknesses? So really, at the highest level, it's an application that tries to give you as much information as you can get from a desktop before you get on the ground and actually start burning the woods.
Okay. So, and then for the non-technical listener, the kind of first application of this, or the user interface, is in a mapping app. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, mapping was the obvious ingestion point where I knew people would understand what I was showing them. We've never called it a mapping app, and although we're very good at mapping, when you really dive into the app, there's so much more going on there. But that's kind of the central thrust of what, because we're hunting on the land in the ground, it's kind of the first thing people think about. Right. So whenever they're scrolling around the map or looking at things, what's going to influence that intel tab, or what historical weather you're going to get, or what weather forecasts you're going to get, deer prediction, all that stuff. It's kind of central to it. But I think about it like I think about a Tesla. Like, a Tesla is anything but a car these days. It's got 4 wheels and a steering wheel. But there's so much more going on there that to call it a car is kind of selling it short. It's not in the same class as like a Model T. It's providing a service, but it's doing so much more than that. So much more is under the hood. So yes, mapping is central to what we are doing. But I know guys who use it more for the research or a large language model or for the historical information and that type of stuff. And really the mapping just comes down to the point of execution or getting themselves in and out of the woods.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, look, you got, .ai after Spartan Forge. AI is obviously something that is now extremely frothy in our worlds. VC will throw anything at something with .ai after, it seems like. It's similar to kind of, back in the day, it was machine learning and, then it was the cloud and, you see these things bubble. It's funny. I was just writing internally to our team. We do a lot of kind of asynchronous communication, and I'm 38 now. And I remember my first startup was really kind of a vertical SaaS, so you would go back to kind of that early cloud days with Salesforce, and, Salesforce.com built this like huge general CRM that any company, any vertical could use. But then you had, the verticalization. So, companies like Viva Systems said, well, we work in healthcare, and healthcare is ridiculously specific and all sorts of shit you need to know. And so they literally just went and built like a really badass CRM and cloud infrastructure for healthcare on top of Salesforce.com. And it's a $46 billion market cap company today, right? I think we're seeing the exact same thing again right now with AI. You have the big kind of like foundation models. You have OpenAI and all the different kind of big boys who are going super broad. And, they're going to go consumer. But I think there's opportunity right now to tune these things and to be really good at these verticals very similarly. So how are you guys looking at AI? How are you using it currently in the product? And where do you think it's going to go from a hunt perspective?
How we use AI is vast. We use it for coding. So there's multiple engines out there that are pretty good at assisting in code, or at least giving you like ideas.
Claude and
so like you write a line of code and you want to put unit tests in there and test every functionally nascent or low level piece of code to make sure that the function is there. It's like code breadth, depth, and quality is certainly something we use AI for. But we also use AI for we ingest a bunch of LiDAR data to host in the side of the application. And if you look at our LiDAR versus other companies' LiDAR, people always notice the first thing is like ours is much more crisp and intentional. And, we used AI for a lot of that processing. We're doing stuff on the back end right now that people are kind of recreating, or they're taking it from Amazon. But the hunter is a fickle product owner. So you have to really tether it exactly to their use case. Like there are animal recognition protocols out there that can tell you like deer, right? But then if you feed it a stag deer or an elk, it's still going to tell you deer. And the companies really don't know what they're hosting or what they're looking at. They just know it's a service they bought from Amazon and that they pay for monthly. So we're doing stuff there I think is a lot more nuanced and informing that will be valuable for like land managers or outfitters and that type of thing. But then also there's a whole, just like I was like, when I first pitched a company on the fact that I was using and integrating artificial intelligence for machine learning, which really I think is a bad term. I just call it distributed pattern recognition. But when I first, that was 2014, I think, when I had the first call talking about how I was going to be leveraging these things, because I was doing it in the military and I knew that it was a possibility. It was something that could be done. And they just had no clue what I was talking about. And there's evolving things in the AI. In AI now, there are things coming out that are being used in different places that I know that these companies aren't thinking about. And there are things that I started building here a couple of years ago. And my goal, like I said, was to start an AI and ML company. And what I couldn't convince, now all of the companies in the space are in it. But like 6 or 7 years ago, when I was trying to convince them to get into the space first, it was like I was talking Greek or Latin to these people. Like they just could not get it. And had I started with, one of the bigs in the beginning, they would be leaps and bounds ahead of everyone. And I'm not trying to sound like an ass or anything like that. All I'm trying to say is there are things happening now in AI that people, like if you read the papers and what's being published and you look at what's out there, that have direct impact in the hunting market. I'm going to adopt some more of those and bring them in, because when I started the product, I couldn't get anyone on board with this. So when I was dealing with other companies, they were like, well, you don't want to build a map and you don't want to do X, Y, and Z. And by the end of my interactions with them, I was like, I think I told you in our last call, but I was like, look, building the map's not the tough part. Like that's Mapbox has made it very simple now to do, where you can have an app up in like 3 days that's got a map. It's all of the stuff that I'm telling you guys about right now, which if I can start working on them now, they're going to be the problem in the future. And the first person to kind of strike gold there is going to, they're going to win. And so now that I've got a map and I've got that like I've got our map like 80% where I want it, and I've got my own team that's working on that now. It's just not like me and two other guys. I'm getting back into focusing on these things that I want to adopt over the next few years. And the biggest problem or the biggest challenge for me isn't the technology, it's user adoption and users metabolizing what they're looking at and understanding it, and then how they practically apply it in the world. So the UI and UX is foundational in that core capacity to get people to understand A, what they're looking at, B, how it works, and then C, how to employ it. So that's why I'm working on stuff that I'm probably won't be coming out with for a year or two. But if you guys listen, if anyone listens to a podcast of mine from 2017 or 2018, my presupposition was always I'm going to work with one of these large mapping companies, and I'm just going to focus on the AI. Like I'll be the R&D sector. That never matriculated. So what I had to do is go build a map first, and that's what I've been doing now for about 3 years, is perfecting that map space while getting growth and focusing on things that we needed to focus on, not because they were the technical obstacles to me, but because there were features that I needed to integrate in the application to get the user adoption, to have the revenue to work on these sexy things. So someone might listen to a podcast from me in 2017 or 2018, and I'm talking about Cyber Scout, which we finally have, or I'm talking about LiDAR, or I'm talking about any number of things that we've built that we're just now getting to because I had to have that in place. Like it's kind
of
like
the distribution channel. It's like, hey, like back then you're like, cool, you have users, you have the distribution channel. Let's bring these new products to that channel. But they didn't take you up on it. And so it's like, cool, now I got to build my own distribution channel, and then I can get back to, pushing what I think is the actual needle mover. Yeah,
it's like I needed a car. Right. I wanted to build Tesla, and none of the bigs were seeing what I was trying to say, which is exactly what happened actually with, I'm not comparing myself to Elon Musk, but it's actually exactly what happened with them. Was he wanted to get into the AI, spatial awareness, 3D radar space, and he really wasn't seeing anybody convinced of it when he was trying to do this in like 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
So he went and did it himself. So it's kind of the same thing in that I'm finally getting to the point where I get to focus on these things. And and I'm very excited about what we have coming in the future. But that UI UX thing, again, is important because you can give someone the best piece of technical kit in the world, but if they don't know how to use it or employ it, or if it scares them. I get messages about like our large language model where, people are like, I don't like this. I feel like I'm, the Pandora's out of the box or something like that. And it's kind of a thing where you just have to show people what they're actually looking at. Like AI is not AI. We could dominate the whole podcast on going through on why AI is not AI. It's just linear algebra with some nonlinear transformations. And it looks like magic, but really the value of AI is the data that goes into it.
That's right.
The algorithms, the back-forward propagation, neuron weighting, linear algebra. The core tenets of AI have been around since the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It was, we lacked the compute and the databasing at the time to realize it. But, people, I hear it still in podcasts, and I even hear very reputable people talking about it, where they're like, well, it's going to become sentient, or it's going to become this or that or whatever. And it's like, no, it's only as good as its training data. It's only as good as its knowledge. It can't engage in like heuristic adoption. In other words, like if you and I are working on a car and we're trying to get an oil filter off, but we don't have the correct wrench. So we go to the garage and we get a rope, and then we take a rope and we tie a knot in it, and then we put a stick on there, and then we twist the rope until the knot gets so tight that now I can ratchet down on the oil filter and take it off. That's intelligence, right? Like that's abstraction and using tools, something that wasn't in our training data. We took and made and did. That's intelligence.
Yeah.
AI in any of its forms cannot do that unless you tell it that that's an ability. In other words,
that's a use for a rope and a stick. Yeah, it's like
right. Like in other words, unless I give it if I give AI a Jane's manual to work on a '67 Camaro, it's gonna be able to tell you everything about that '67 Camaro and how to work on it and what tools you need. But if you say I don't have the 10 millimeter wrench for this, part of the slave cylinder,
right.
it's going to throw up on itself. Like it'll tell you got to go get the wrench. And there's not, it's not intuitively saying, well, you could go take one of your English, you could go take a monkey wrench and you can do X, Y, and Z to it and do this and temper it down here and then employ it in that way. It can't get to that. Now you could teach it to do that, but again,
you have to give it the data.
It's relying on conscious actors, humans, to give it intelligence, and it can't get past that. There's a great book about it that was actually written in the '89, I think. It was called what's it called? It's by a guy named Penrose, and it's The Emperor's New Mind. The book's called The Emperor's New Mind. He's been talking about this forever, and I subscribe to what he is saying, which is there's not intelligence there. It's not artificial intelligence. I think the term that he used was like advanced cleverness or something like that. What I would call it would be like distributed pattern recognition. So you feed it a manual.
Really quick.
Really quick. It uses a lot of processing and power. It makes neurons and weights, and it responds to you based on the training doctrine that it has. And then you ask it a question, it spits out an answer. That's really simply what it is. I don't get afraid of AI. I don't think we're anywhere near it. I think if there's a general intelligence on the horizon, it's 50 or 100 years away. It's going to involve quantum computing and quantum states if we ever get there. Quantum computing is very interesting to me. I read about it a lot in my free time. And like I said, I could dominate this podcast on that, but I won't get there because I doubt people want to hear me nerd out on that. But like all of my books next to me that I'm looking at right now are either hunting or quantum, and quantum entanglement, superpositions, and all that type of stuff. That's probably where something like AI will come from. I still don't think it's going to meet our rubric for what intelligence we're talking about today. And the bottom line is, if there was no human, codified human thought in the form of the internet, there would be no AI. There would be no training data.
Yeah, the training data is not there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. I've definitely gone in the rabbit hole on quantum on YouTube. I'm just like, I'm not that smart. You talk about UI UX. This is a conversation we're having internally right now with one of my, my product lead who's done marketplaces and, scaled internet startups for a long time. We spent the last generation of the internet trying to design a damn screen, whether it's on your mobile phone or your laptop. People will just not read. So you just like try to figure out how to get people to see a button and do the thing and go down the path to do the thing, right? And they're just not going to read shit. And now we've like totally inverted it with LLMs to where they're going to like type and they're going to read chunks of text. And there's no like UI effectively. And it's just like this really interesting period of time. Now, again, that's not every single use case, but in general, we've really kind of like almost removed UI from the conversation. We're working on some, AI product where it's, SMS is going to be how you interact with it. And because I think that's a really good user interaction for a lot of different things, right? Just like a personal assistant. If you've ever had one, they're awesome. Like they just text you or they'll call you, check in real quick. They know your preferences. They know what you like. And they might just like have a question. Then they go do the stuff, right? So from a UI UX perspective, obviously, if you're in field, you don't want to read about a map, right? You want to just look at a map. That's the best user experience right now. So for you, are you, from a hunting perspective, I mean, what UI UX kind of like, if you're willing to talk about it, are the changes that you think are coming for the hunting application for like Spartan Forge?
Well, I can kick that up another level of analysis and tell you about where I think computing and where I think apps are going. And that will inform, I think, kind of how UI and UX is. So the first thing is, like when I talk about UI and UX, I myself, as coming from the soldier background, it lines up with my ethos or my philosophy when it comes to hunting. Like I want people on the phone as little as possible when they're in the field.
Yeah. Right.
And so that means like you've got between 2 and 5 kilobytes a second when you're using your two thumbs to interact with a phone. And that's kind of the throughput. So you can, if you want to telephone something, you have to type with your thumbs, you have to speak with your voice.
Right.
So you get bandwidth, interaction, and then you get bandwidth back, which is much more robust because The phone gives you images. It can quickly explain things. So you have in other words, you have a better download speed than you have an upload speed. So the challenge with UI and UX, and what I think is good UI and UX, is you're getting a maximum amount of information with the minimum amount of interaction with the system. So like as a developer or as somebody who's done, coding, I prefer Linux distributions or Unix distributions because the modularity, they're great for engineers, but they're terrible for a unified user experience. So when you talk about like distributions like Ubuntu or Fedora or Arch or Pop or whatever it is, they have their own way that they get set up, and they're robust when you understand how to use them. But most people aren't, running their own Unix distributions or Linux distributions. So when it comes to user interface, what companies like Windows got done quickly was like instead of on the command line, now you're talking about Windows 3.1. And Windows all the way up to what we have today, or you're talking about Mac and Mac OS and that type of stuff. So what they were able to do is point and click because you're using that finger, you're using that
But
keyboard.
the GUI, yep.
Yeah, and make it as understandable and easy to work as possible. And then we work in like Control V, right click, copy, paste. People adopt new heuristics that makes the interaction quicker. So like instead of looking at an internet site and understanding it and then typing it all out, you can just copy and paste things. UI and UX to me, good UI and UX to me, which is what I brought from the military, was the minimum amount of interaction, the maximum amount of output or information. So when I started with Spartan Forge, it was like, I'm going to have presets. So I don't need to reconfigure every map. Like if you're in another mapping application, if you want to go from imagery to topo, and you want the topo lines to be a certain way, and you want on your imagery you want property ownership, but on your topo lines you want slope angle shading and stuff like that. What I did was I made presets like in a car radio. So once you have them preset and set up, you can turn on the compass wiper and you can just swipe through each one of those. So now you have an action that on another app or in another distribution might have taken you 10 minutes to get through. Now you're just doing it with the swipe of a finger. But that came with some friction in that users they were programmed by the only apps that were out there about how to do this, and then they got used to it. And that was a downfall of me as an early product owner, is not understanding that, hey, people have been getting trained for 8 years on how this system operates and how it gets used. So instead of showing them a similar system and then slowly showing them like, hey, you can Control C, you can Control V, you can copy paste, you can do these things. So, that's the balance of UX and UI is, and that's where the product owner is a far more important title to me than CEO. And so when I first came out with the first iteration of Spartan Forge, we had like a gear, and you could customize your maps, and you could do X, Y, and Z. From there, we went to a map layering system with presets. And now I get a lot of people who are like, I can't even go back to the old apps now because it's so quick and I can get so much information quickly. Like we have a single tap where you can get to your tools. We have a double tap of your compass to drop a pin. We go to the presets. But I shouldn't have front-loaded as much of that as I did.
Yeah.
So like good UI,
it was too jarring.
UX,
it was too different.
Yeah, it was too jarring, too different. And so good UI and UX is, sits in the middle of understanding what's come before you, and then knowing that you'll have to increment what's going to come in front of you, or where you're trying to push the user experience in order to make your efficiencies scale. And so that was a challenge for me, and that to me is good UI and UX. Is it's intuitive. You can look at it and clearly understand what's going on, but then B or two, you can adopt new heuristics and then get what you need quicker without having to go all over the place. So we have like a chip system. So instead of going to, clicking public land and seeing 50 different states, and then every state with every different type of public land that they have, it's like, let's just present all the public land when they turn it on. And we'll iterate on that and make it better. But that to me, and I hope I answered the question, but that to me is kind of like UI and UX in a nutshell. And it's something that I had to learn over time because I had a captive audience in the military where they had to learn what I was showing them.
Yes.
And even if it was a better system, there was still entropy in that they had to adopt and learn. And then the learning curve malformed because adoption was slower. But then when they figured out, they were there. So it's been really interesting. I've learned a ton, in there. Too much Figma.
It really, it's one thing that rang true to me there. One of many things. I just had this experience recently, and I had something I never thought about is like the throughput. One of the major bottlenecks every single day, no matter what I'm doing, is how fast I can type. And so there's an app that got released, which if Apple was any good at any fucking thing, this app would not exist. Siri would be good enough, but it's called Whisper. And so, I'll put a link for the show because it's just that good. But yeah, it's amazing voice to text. It recognizes what apps you're using. So I use it on my desktop all day. So if I'm on email, it formats it like an email. If I'm in text, it's more casual. And it just it does it. And it's amazing. And it's like, oh yeah, I type at my best 62 words a minute. And I'm talking at 138 words a minute. And you're just like this unbelievable bottleneck that you just don't ever think about. And then once you start using it, you're like, oh, why the hell am I typing? It's so freaking slow to get my ideas to you. Right?
Yeah.
These fundamental things.
It is very fundamental. And that's kind of what I was doing with the app is like, anytime you're iterating on something, you still have to go back to the past and understand any presuppositions that you have about a piece of tech, and then how you can iterate on that. And that builds quality. And then, quality and use of experience builds, how often somebody uses something. If it's enjoyable to use, it can present the best information in the world. But if it's not enjoyable to use or it's not easy to use, then you might as well not have built the product in the first place.
Yeah, it's how old enterprise software was, right? Just this clunky shit that it was impossible to use. But guess what? You work at a 500,000 person organization, the CTO bought it and you're going to use it. Just like you got a captive audience in the military. It's like, yeah, you got to use it, bro. So I think, a lot of this comes down to when you talk about UI, UX and kind of like these changes, it comes down to the conversation I've had in this series with other founders and operators, which is recreation technology, what you do, what I do, is really, if you boil it down, about effective use of your time outdoors. That's at least what I've come to, right? That's a common thread amongst all of us, right? It's like we're busy, family, kids, work, all this stuff. And it's like, man, I get a handful of time, just a little bit of time outdoors. And I want it to be effective. And effective for me means no bullshit. I go outside with friends or family to like relax. I don't want to go with 65 other people at the trailhead. I don't want to do that stuff. So I started LandTrust. Hey, you can book it. You can save your time door knocking and trying to figure all this shit out. You just go to this place and you got it to yourself for the weekend or whatever it is, right? But yeah, same thing with you. You can go do all this stuff yourself. You could go find all the research and you can go compile it and you can go build your spreadsheets, or you could use your app and save yourself freaking hours and hours and hours of work, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think, to smite my own, because I've been an outdoorsman for like 25 years. And one of the problems that we have in this community is we really judge each other way too much. Like, people instead of spending their time scouting or getting out and working or doing whatever, they're too busy judging everyone else. Like, if someone is engaging in legally and ethically in the pursuit of wild game, whether it's for, I always kill 2 or 3 doe every year so that my kids are eating fresh venison. Or I'm doing wild turkey or whatever like that. When it all boils down, if you told me I had to lose my ability to just like kill some does and put meat in the freezer or chase antlers, I'll keep the does. Like, that's really what it's about for me. Now, once I've killed a few does and now I want to go chase some antlers, like, that's kind of where the challenge comes in.
Right.
And I think what people fail to understand is, we really don't have room to judge anyone else when it comes to how somebody pursues or engages in that pursuit. So you can I've got friends, and I'm sure you too, who, for instance, you go hunting with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan runs the most popular podcast in the world. If he wants to put a tag on a 150-inch whitetail in Texas, he can go find some public land, and he can waste 30 hours, 40 hours, where he could be making $2,000, $10,000 an hour to pursue that whitetail buck. And he'd probably be successful because he's a smart guy. Or he can write a check for 10 grand, and him and his daughters can go and kill a buck, and then they're done. And they've got their venison, they've got their experience, there's time in deer camp, they're pushing the culture forward. Hunters, you'll see someone kill a big deer or do whatever online. They're like, probably high fence, probably this, probably that. And it's like, yeah,
Haters.
if I'm a lawyer making $2,000 an hour, maybe I don't want to spend 40 hours the next month scouting public land. Maybe I just want to go and have the experience and push the culture forward and make my kids want to go and do the public land thing when they're in their 20s. And you think about it, like a kid who's like 20, whereas time might be worth $11 an hour, $12 an hour.
At the best.
It's totally cool for him to go and take his weekend and spend all his time scouting and do all of these things. Because if he went and saved at McDonald's and worked the weekends at McDonald's or construction or wherever, where he's making $10, $20 an hour, his likelihood for getting on that 150-inch deer is way better and cost-effective if he's just using his time scouting. Now, if he gets some promotions, now he's managing that place, and now he's making $200K a year or $300K a year. He still wants to go and hunt. He still wants venison, but he can't take the time away from work, or his time is better spent with his kids.
That's right.
Why do I fault him if he goes and pays for a lease, or he builds his own farm, or he goes and pays somebody in Texas at Cactus Jack's to, hunt a deer and be done with it so he can get back to work, or he can take that time on his family. He's still engaging. He's still buying a hunting license. He's still getting the camo. He's still doing all of the stuff. Whether or not he needs to, he's still doing it. So why judge him? And also on the opposite end, you'll never hear those guys judging some guy who went out on public land spending 300 hours because they don't have the time for it.
That's right.
So it's not even if I cared, I wouldn't have the time to go do it. Nor do I care. Or should I care? He's buying a ticket, or he's buying a tag. He's helping conservation. He's employing other outfitters. He's employing other guides. He's employing other guys on land.
Pushing the tradition on. Yep, all that.
Pushing the tradition. Money does, people have problems with banks and outfitters and you name it. Somebody hates something about someone. Do you think when a bank takes money in, they just stick it in their mattress? No, it goes into a bank. They give lower interest loans. They put it into the economy. They invest. It's dynamic. It's always out there doing things. So if I had one piece of advice for hunters, it would be just focus on yourself and your own hunt. I still hunt public land. I could very easily not very easily, I wouldn't like to do it. I could afford to go down to Cactus Jack's or somewhere else. I've got 40 acres out in North Dakota. I could spend money there, moving that land around. I could go down to Texas and do that. But for the experience, it's still worth it to me to go roam wild, vast public land in Pennsylvania or in Illinois or in North Dakota, mostly because it's about the experience for me. It's about it's not even if I'm successful or not. It's just I'm out there and I get to focus my time somewhere else and I get to forget about the world.
That's right.
That's the attraction for me in public land. Now, if I kill a big buck while I'm out there, that's awesome. Like I'm happy. There's going to be a time though where it's like, hey, I'd rather go see my daughter play soccer this weekend. Right. Or I'd rather spend more time on my application or whatever. And now if I want a buck on the wall or I want venison in the freezer, I might have to pay for a guide, land, access to a farm, whatever. And so I know I've gone on about this a long time, but we really hunters just need to focus on themselves. Like, I have enough issues on my own. I don't have the time to spend judging other people. I've got too much crap I need to fix in my own life that I can't even begin to go online and bitch about the way other people provide for themselves or their family. And as long as they're legally and ethically engaging in the culture, I don't care. It's just not my thing.
I totally agree, man. I've liked every type of hunting and fishing I've ever done. I've done a lot of different types, and it's all good, man. And beyond just that aspect is I grew up surfing, spearfishing, doing all that kind of stuff. No one's trying to legislate out of existence surfing, So
right.
As hunters, this thing we love, which is a hobby, let's just call it a spade. Like, none of us are subsistence hunters. It's a passion. It's a hobby that we love. And, no one's trying to regulate snowboarding or skiing or golf or surfing, right? No, hunting is actively being lobbied against to be made illegal. And there's plenty of countries around the world where you can say, look, it's illegal there. So beyond just the infighting, it's like, guys, keep your eye on the prize here. If we all want to keep doing this thing, we got to vote for it. We got to make sure more people do it so that more people as a per capita care about it enough to vote to say, like, no, they should still be able to do that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have bigger enemies than our own.
Yeah.
Other people that we need to focus on, legislation. And, I agree with you. There are very few people who are subsistence hunting. There are a few. I know a couple of guys, but they don't have to. Like the 8 hours they spent out in the woods, they could go and work 8 hours extra at the company. Then they could go buy beef. But again, it's a system of trade. Like there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs.
That's right.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, I would say the per pound on elk meat is pretty expensive, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty expensive. But, well, I mean, I know we're coming up here on time, man. It's a very fascinating conversation. Very different background. You're definitely a cerebral dude. And I think it's cool to see that kind of application brought into this space. And, you know, I'm excited to see your guys' growth. I want to see what you got brewing up. You know, I know you said you had to go build your own mapping because you had to get the distribution, but I want to see the stuff you're working on next because I think it's probably going to be pretty interesting. Anything you want to leave folks with? Where should they find you? What should they do? All that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, the one thing I try to say on every podcast, and I'll say it here, and I won't do it for as long as I could, but like everything that I've got 2 other companies that I'm also building stuff in, places that I'm trying to put my time and my energy. Everything that I try to do is because I want to bolster the experience of the individual in America into some, you know, we'll probably get into Canada at some point, maybe, I don't know. Although legislation is crazy to get up there, like all the whole red tape, it's really crazy.
Yep.
So maybe not, maybe I'll just focus on the US. But everything that I try to build is how do I increase freedom and how do I increase individual autonomy and kind of rekindle the ruggedness of the American experience. I know that sounds paradoxical coming from a hunting application, but we offer a free version of the app as well, where if you are that 16-year-old or 20-year-old a lot of time, you can drop pins. And we also do public and private on there for free. So you can go on there, you can make sure you're not trespassing, and you can go out there and engage in the culture. We're the only application that does that. We're the only application that offers free public and private land for all 50 states. You can go out there, you can drop pins, you can see the weather, you can do your thing and engage in the culture. And then we have a suite of, you know, paid for features that once that person is in the economy and they start making money, if they've got the extra $70 a year, they can do more. And we've got all kinds of discounts. And a lot of times I'll have 16, 17-year-old kids reach out to me. I'll give them a free year. Like just get them engaging in the culture, getting them out there. And that's really everything that I build in this company is for that purpose, is how do I make the lot of the American better who's trying to engage in this culture. So I hope that comes through on our social media or what we're doing or how we posture ourselves. I still do all of the trouble. Like if you submit a trouble ticket through social media, problem with the app, I spend almost this morning it was 3 hours going through that. I kick them off to other guys or I finish them and write them myself. I try to have a pulse exactly on, you know, our customer segment. And of course, I've got a great support team that helps me out. You know, when it's something technical or it's something that's going to make more time, then it'll go off to one of my guys. But if you got a problem with the app, something you like about the app, feature that you'd like to see, you know, we're on Meta, on Facebook and Instagram. We're even on X, and our website is SpartanForge.ai. And you know, any of those channels where you engage with us, I'll either be the guy responding to your message or you know, getting you with our customer support team. And we hope to hear from everyone. And just I hope everyone has a great and safe hunting season this year.
Yeah, that's badass, man. So I didn't know you were doing free public and private land boundary data. So all you Onyx users, Bill didn't say this, but I did. You can go export all your pins. It's called a KML file. You can upload them into Spartan Forge. You can get free public and private land boundary data map usage, you know, right there. So
and we don't hit them with crazy ads. We don't sell them. Like I wouldn't publish them, but I've got, you know, our user email pool is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
I've gotten offers for tens of thousands all the way up to 150,000 just for our email list. We'll never sell our email list. We don't do any of that stuff. We don't hit them with in-app advertisements. There'll be an advertisement for like a new Spartan Forge feature on the splash screen when you launch the app, and that's it. Otherwise, you're using the app. There's offline mapping there, public and private land. We've got videos on our YouTube, so if you do want to put your pins over from other apps, you can create that KML file. The process, I think, takes 2 minutes.
Yep.
So it's all there. Like, save yourself money, go out, experience the outdoors, and I'm trying to bring a better class of service to the hunter.
Yeah, man.
and actually build something for them. So I'm running the experiment that I hope people will see that and appreciate it. And if they don't, well then, there's plenty of bartenders needed in the world, and I can go find something else to do.
All right, man. I love it. Yeah, guys, check it out. Bill and the team are building something cool. They're obviously pro-American. Can't be said for some of the other apps out there in the mapping space. It's just a different ethos, I think, running through them. But I got friends at multiple mapping companies, and I like them all. And then there's a couple out there that maybe not so much. But check it out. SpartanForge.ai. We'll put links into the description for the website, for the socials, all that good stuff. And yeah, if you got any issues, I'm very much the same. I answer questions about LandTrust stuff all the time. I'm very hands-on. Sounds like Bill's doing the same thing over there at Spartan Forge. But really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you for sharing the knowledge.
Thank you, Nick. Have a great day.
And that was Bill Thompson, founder and CEO at Spartan Forge, although he does like to be called the product owner. So maybe we'll refer to him as that. Great conversation. Obviously, you can tell Bill's a very intelligent guy, very cerebral in his approach. I love to see it. By the way, all our listeners out there, if you enjoyed the episode, do us a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast, and leave us ratings and reviews on whatever the platform is, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. It does really help us grow the show. Keep bringing on great guests like Bill. You can check out more of what Spartan Forge is doing over at spartanforge.ai. You can follow Bill on LinkedIn. I don't know how active he is there. And then Instagram and Facebook, it's a Spartan Forge. Stay up with the company. You can also follow LandTrust at LandTrust_Hunt, I want to say, on Instagram. And then do follow our YouTube channel. We're starting to put up more content out there, and we want to grow that. So if you haven't, go to YouTube and just type in LandTrust.com and subscribe to us there and hit the little bell button. Also, if you have not already, head to LandTrust.com and create your free account. If you like to hunt, fish, get outdoors, you're crazy not to. It's free to create an account. It takes about 10, 15 seconds. You tell us what you like to do. Do you like to hunt? Do you like to fish? What species, what state you live in, what states you're interested in, all that good stuff. And then we just send you awesome properties and packages that match your interests. Think about it kind of like Zillow, but for hunting and fishing. And we do that for free. 365 days a year, we're out there scouting for you. And we have some more cool stuff coming out soon, some AI product of our own. So please do make sure you have an account. You'll probably get the early peek at that. It's coming out very soon. Anyways, thank you for listening to the podcast, and we're done for this one. Tune in next week for our next episode.